Hi everyone, so this video is to present about the topic of the industrial relations. Okay, so this slides is actually taken from the book written by Maimunah Aminuddin. Okay, so this particular topic is basically on the overview of the Malaysian industrial relations and the employment law. So at the end of this topic, yeah, you as a students are required to understand several things. The first is defining industrial relations, okay, and then the focus of industrial relations. You have to know what are the tripartite systems or tripartite systems and what are the key and who are the key players. Okay, next is on the employment legislation and the role of the Ministry of Human Resources and other key agencies. So these are particularly the 5 important topics that we will be covering in this overview of Malaysian industrial relations and employment laws. So we go straight to the industrial relations. What does it mean? Yeah, it is basically the relationship between an employer and his employees, especially when the employees are members of a trade union. Okay, so not all organizations have trade union. Okay, it depends on the size of the organizations. Some trade unions not only created based on one particular organization, it also can be created based on the industry, such as banking industry. Yeah, if you can still remember way back in 2000, early 2000s. Okay, so if I can bring you back in the early 2000 when the trade union of banking industry, they do some kind of picket. Okay, they are not satisfied with the mergers of banking, and that has caused many of the employees of the banks have been laid off. Yeah, so this is one kind of trade union activities lah. They do some pickets, lockout and lots of other things. Okay, so basically IR or industrial relations is about relationship between employer and the employees. Okay, so in other terms, it's also called as employment relations or labor relations. Okay, whether or not you're working at the human resource department, yeah, when it is called an employees, you have to know about your rights as employees. Yeah, so it is the reasons why every one of us need to know the issues about employment relations or industrial relations. Okay, so we go to the literal meaning of the terms. Yeah, industry means any economic activity concerned with the processing of raw materials and manufacture of goods in factories. So this is just a literal meaning of industry. Whereas relations means the way in which two or more people or things are connected. When we come across the term or the word relations, it must be more than one party. Yeah, it must be more than two or more people who are, interrelated with each other. Yeah, they are connected. They are we can also call it as they are bounded by certain terms and conditions or regulations that connect them both. So this is why we call as employment relations. But the definition of the industrial relation is not exhaustive, meaning to say that it is open. Yeah, some of them say that industrial relations encompasses a set of phenomena. Yeah, both inside and outside the workplace. It concerned with determining and regulating employment relationship. Yeah, so when we talk about phenomena, yeah, phenomena, it's always talk about the, the scenario or the situations of the organizations, of the workplace, of, the workplace where you are working at, inside and also outside. Yeah, and it's also basically talk about how how the relationships between employers and employees being regulated. So it's basically, in simple word, we could say that IR is basically is the scenario, is the scenario of the relationship between employees and the employers. Okay, so there are some philosophical definitions which popular scholars have defined it in certain ways. The first one, Dunlop 1958, he said that industrial relation is basically the complex interrelations among managers, workers, and agencies of the government. Okay, so in this sense, it says that it is complicated. The relationship between those parties, managers, employers, employees, are complicated, and it's quite complex in the way of they interact with each other. Okay, but not to forget, there is this the word agencies of governments, because later on we will understand not only the organization, not only the employees, but also there is other parties such as the government agencies who will be involved in their relationships. Okay, and next, Dale Yoder 1944 says that IR is basically the process of management dealing with one or more unions with the view to negotiate and subsequently administer collective bargaining agreement or labor contract. Okay, so we look at these slides. It's basically the focus of industrial relations. You can see that the first one is relationship between employers and trade unions. Next is the laws relate to the employment, and the third one is disciplinary procedures and termination of employment. So we have actually talk a lot about relationship between employers and trade unions. In here, laws is relatively related to Employment Law 1955, Industrial Relations Act 1967. There are also other laws related to SOCSO, Social Security, and Occupational Safety and Health. So these are laws that govern the relationship. Okay, so who needs to study industrial relations? So these are the people that need to study, because these are basically either formally or informally are related to the organization. Next is tripartite industrial relation systems. Basically, there are three parties involved. Three parties involved. The first is employers or the organizations. Okay. The second is employees and their trade unions. Okay. And the third one is the government. So there are three parties. That is what we call as tripartite IR system. Okay, so these three parties, they are interrelated with each other. Okay, in order for them to come out with a harmony, a harmony environment in the organization. So what are these main parties are doing? Okay, so you can see from the slide. So basically, the employees, they have their own personal characteristics. They have their own skills, qualifications, culture, attitudes, and they play a very important role in industrial relations. Next is the employers. They are a very also important variable in these industrial relations. Okay, they only not providing employment, but also they need to provide certain regulations, certain procedures in order for the employees to follow. So the next one is the government. Okay, so the government is basically provide some kind of influence to the industrial relations in a way that providing some intervening, when there is no agreements between employers and employees on their conflict. So there is this intervention of this government. Okay, so government also will determine the wages. Like in Malaysia, we have minimum wages of 1,000 200 ringgit or 1,100 ringgit, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, working conditions through various laws relating to labor. Yeah, so the government will keep an eye on the relationship between those both parties. Okay, so what are the features of industrial relations? So basically, it is about the employment relationship. Yeah, so organization or the employer should provide an environment that are that are harmony to be working at. So in other words, with this employment relationship between employers and employees, the employees would be able to perform their best whenever they're being treated well. Okay, and there is another features also characterized by both conflict and cooperation. Yeah, because we know that employees, they have various, that they have various skills, attitudes. Yeah, so there are sometimes happen that employees have conflict towards the managers, towards the organizations, and at the end of the day, those conflicts need to be, settled, need to be settled down, and there must be a cooperation between both. Yeah, okay. So another features is related to environmental issues. So organizations and the employees will need to abide with the environmental issues like technology of the workplace, any country's socio-economic and political environment. Yeah, like nowadays we are talking about green environment and sustainability issues. So they have to make sure that both parties are cooperated together to make sure that the issues these environmental issues have been addressed. And then yeah, the industrial relations also involve the study of conditions conducive to the labor. Yeah, conducive. Uh, okay, so the conducive conditions must be provided to the employees so that there is this cooperation between both. Okay, all right. So not only that, I think the final features of industrial relations is that it guides to the preparing of the policy framework. Yeah, and the providing in-depth analysis of the intervening patterns. Okay, so who are the key players in Malaysian industrial relations? Basically, these are the players. First one is National Labour Advisory Council, Ministry of Human Resources, Malaysian Trade Union Congress, Malaysian Employers Federation, and International Labour Organization. Okay, so when we talk about International Labour Organization, it is basically based in US. Yeah, so basically this ILO has no powers to enforce any directives or rules, but it formulates key labour standards that members of this ILO, including Malaysia, are expected to implement. So there are certain, certain standards or certain rules that ILO has actually prepared that has to be, implemented by countries such as Malaysia. Next is employment laws. Yeah, laws providing basic benefits and rights for employees and employers. Okay, laws establishing a framework for the industrial relations system. So as I told you, we have several laws. Yeah, Employment Act 1955, Industrial Relation Act 1967. We have social security laws as well as OSH. Yeah, Occupational Safety and Health. Okay, so these are the role of the government in IR. Okay, so basically these are to protect welfare of workers, good employee-employee relationship, assist the unemployed find employment, and conduct national human resource planning. So this is the roles of the departments of human resources and other key agencies.